You know what separates a man who commands respect from one who begs for it? It's not the clothes on his back or the car he drives. It's something far more dangerous. Something most men are too afraid to face. See, I've learned that attraction isn't about tricks or lines you memorize from some bloody book. It's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to chase because he's already worth chasing. Most men spend their entire lives trying to prove their value to women, to society, to everyone except themselves. They've forgotten the fundamental truth that every powerful man understands. You don't attract quality by pretending to be something you're not. You attract it by mastering yourself so completely that your presence alone speaks volumes. The strongest weapon you possess isn't charm, it's discipline. The most magnetic quality isn't charisma, it's purpose. I'm going to show you 5 habits that changed everything. Not because they make you someone else, but because they reveal who you truly are, beneath all that doubt and desperation. These aren't just habits, they're principles that separate boys from men, and men from legends. Let me tell you something about the first habit that most men get completely backward. They think being available makes them desirable. They think answering every text within seconds, clearing their schedule at a moment's notice, and putting their entire life on hold shows dedication. But what it really shows is desperation, and desperation repels quality, like water repels oil. The first habit you need to master is protecting your time, like it's the most valuable currency you own, because it bloody well is. When I'm building something, when I'm focused on an objective, nothing and no one pulls me away from that, unless I decide they're worth the interruption. And here's the truth that'll sting a bit: when you have real purpose in your life, when you're genuinely committed to building something meaningful, you don't have time to be at everyone's beck and call. Women don't want a man who's always available, because a man who's always available is a man who has nothing important going on in his life. Think about it this way: when you're working towards something real, something that demands your complete focus and energy, you naturally become selective about who gets access to your time. You're not playing hard to get, you're actually hard to get, because you value what you're building more than temporary validation. And that's attractive, because it signals that you're a man of substance, a man with direction, a man who isn't just drifting through life waiting for someone to give him purpose. The second habit builds directly on the first, and it's about emotional control. Now, I don't mean turning yourself into some emotionless robot who never feels anything. That's not strength, that's cowardice, hiding behind a mask. What I mean is mastering your reactions to the point where you choose your responses rather than letting your emotions choose for you. I've sat across the table from men who wanted me dead, and I've kept my face as still as stone because the moment they see fear or anger or desperation, they've won. The same principle applies to attraction. When a woman tests you, and trust me, they will test you, your reaction tells her everything she needs to know about your character. If she cancels plans and you lose your mind, you've failed the test. If she doesn't respond to a message and you send 5 more, you've failed the test. But if you maintain your composure, if you remain unfazed by the small turbulence that would send weaker men spiraling, you've demonstrated something far more valuable than any words could express. You've shown her that you're unmovable, unshakable, and that kind of stability is magnetic, because most people are chaos looking for calm. Women, particularly quality women, have spent their entire lives dealing with men who can't control their emotions. Men who explode in anger over minor inconveniences, men who crumble under pressure, men who become needy and clingy the moment they feel their grip loosening. When you show up as someone different, someone who maintains their center regardless of external circumstances, you stand out like a lighthouse in a storm. Now here's where most self-improvement advice goes completely off the rails. They tell you to fake it till you make it, to pretend you're confident even when you're terrified inside. But that's not what I'm talking about. Real emotional control comes from genuine confidence, and genuine confidence comes from competence. You can't fake being good at something, and you can't fake the calm that comes from knowing you can handle whatever comes your way. So the real work isn't learning to hide your emotions better. It's building yourself into someone who has legitimate reasons to be confident. When you've faced real challenges and overcome them, when you've built something from nothing, when you've turned yourself into a capable man who can solve problems and create value, the emotional control follows naturally, because you're not afraid of loss anymore. You know you can rebuild, you know you can adapt, you know you're going to be fine regardless of what happens. The third habit is something I learnt in the mud and blood of France, and it served me better than any amount of money or power ever could. Physical discipline. And before you think I'm just talking about going to the gym and getting big muscles, let me be clear about what I actually mean. Physical discipline is about proving to yourself every single day that you can do hard things, that you can push past discomfort, that you're not soft. When you wake up before dawn and put yourself through something difficult while everyone else is still sleeping, you're not just building your body, you're building your mind. You're establishing a pattern of dominance over your own weakness, and that pattern extends into every other area of your life. The man who can force himself to do one more repetition, when every muscle is screaming at him to stop, is the same man who can force himself to stay calm under pressure, to keep going when a business deal falls through, to maintain his standards when a woman tries to manipulate him with emotional games. But here's what most men miss about physical discipline. It's not about the destination. It's about the daily practice of showing up and doing the work regardless of how you feel. Some days you'll feel strong and motivated, and the work will be easy. Other days you'll feel like absolute hell, and the work will be torture. The habit is doing it anyway, because that's what separates you from the masses, who only do things when they feel like it. And women can sense this. They can sense when a man has that internal fortitude, that ability to endure discomfort in pursuit of something greater. It shows in how you carry yourself, in the way you move through the world with purpose and power. A man who's physically disciplined doesn't shuffle through life with rounded shoulders and a weak handshake. He stands tall, he moves with intention, and his physical presence communicates strength before he ever opens his mouth. And attraction is largely unconscious. Women respond to these signals on a primal level because for thousands of years, strength and discipline were the difference between survival and death. The fourth habit is going to challenge everything modern society has told you about being a good man, but it's absolutely essential if you want to attract quality women. You need to develop the ability to walk away from anything that doesn't serve you, and that includes relationships, friendships, business deals, and especially women who don't meet your standards. Most men are so terrified of being alone, so desperate for female validation, that they'll accept disrespect, manipulation, and mediocrity just to avoid the discomfort of walking away. But let me tell you something I learned running the Peaky Blinders. The moment someone realizes you'll accept anything from them is the moment they lose all respect for you. And without respect, there's no attraction, there's no genuine connection, there's nothing but a slow descent into resentment and contempt. Walking away isn't about being cruel or cold-hearted. It's about having standards and enforcing them. It's about valuing yourself enough to demand the same level of respect and effort from others that you put into the relationship. When you're willing to walk away, when everyone around you knows that you won't tolerate disrespect or half-hearted effort, people start treating you differently. They rise to meet your standards because they know you're not bluffing, you're not just making empty threats. You're genuinely prepared to remove yourself from situations that don't align with your values. And paradoxically, this makes you far more attractive because it demonstrates that you're not coming from a place of scarcity. You're not clinging to any one person or opportunity because you're afraid you'll never find another. You're operating from abundance, from the knowledge that you're valuable enough to have options, to have choices, to be selective about who gets access to your life. I've watched men destroy themselves trying to hold on to women who clearly didn't want them, pouring energy and resources into relationships that were already dead, refusing to see the truth, because accepting it meant facing loneliness. And you know what happened to those men? They lost everything anyway, except they lost it slowly, painfully, while sacrificing their dignity in the process. The man who can walk away with his head held high, who can say this isn't working for me, and I deserve better, that man keeps his power. That man maintains his self-respect, and that man becomes infinitely more attractive because he's demonstrated that he values himself more than he values any external validation. The fifth and final habit is perhaps the most important, and it's the one that ties all the others together. You need to build something that matters more to you than any woman ever could. And I'm not saying this to be harsh, or to diminish the value of relationships. I'm saying this because the most attractive thing you can possibly be is a man with a mission, a man with purpose, a man who's driven by something deeper than just the pursuit of pleasure or validation. When I started building the Peaky Blinders into something more than just a street gang, when I started envisioning something bigger, something that would outlast me, everything changed. Women started appearing in my life, not because I was chasing them, but because I became the kind of man worth chasing. Purpose gives you that edge, that intensity, that focus that makes you magnetic. Think about the men throughout history who women threw themselves at. They weren't the ones desperately seeking female attention. They were the ones building empires, creating art, leading movements, pursuing missions that consumed them entirely. Women were drawn to them because being around someone with that level of purpose and passion is intoxicating. It makes you feel alive just to be in their presence. When you have something you're building, something you're genuinely passionate about, you stop being needy because you've already got something that fulfills you. Women become a complement to your life, not the entire point of it. And that shift in frame changes everything about how you interact with them. You're no longer interviewing for the position of boyfriend, hoping she'll approve of you. You're evaluating whether she adds value to the empire you're building, whether she enhances your life or detracts from it. Now, building something meaningful isn't about making millions of dollars or becoming famous, though those things might happen as byproducts. It's about finding something that genuinely matters to you and committing to it with everything you have. Maybe it's building a business, maybe it's mastering a craft, maybe it's creating art, maybe it's contributing to your community in a meaningful way. Whatever it is, it needs to be something that you'd still pursue, even if no woman ever noticed, even if you never received recognition, even if the only reward was the satisfaction of doing the work itself. Because that's where real purpose comes from internal drive rather than external validation. When you combine these 5 habits, when you protect your time, master your emotions, maintain physical discipline, develop the ability to walk away, and build something meaningful, you transform into a completely different type of man. You become someone who doesn't need to learn pickup lines or manipulation tactics, because your entire presence communicates value. You become someone who attracts quality people naturally, because you've made yourself into someone worth being around. And here's the beautiful irony of it all. The moment you stop making women the center of your universe, the moment you redirect that energy into building yourself and your mission, they start appearing in your life in ways you never experienced before. Not because you've learned some trick, but because you've fundamentally changed who you are. This isn't about becoming someone you're not. This is about stripping away all the weakness and fear and desperation that society has conditioned into you, and revealing the powerful man you've always been capable of becoming. Every man has this potential inside him, but most will never access it because they're too comfortable, too afraid, too addicted to immediate gratification to do the hard work required. But you're not most men, are you? If you were, you wouldn't still be here, listening to these words, considering these truths. You'd have clicked away the moment things got uncomfortable, the moment I challenged your existing beliefs about how the world works. The fact that you're still here tells me something important about you. It tells me you're ready to become someone different, someone better, someone who doesn't just dream about being powerful, but actually does the work to make it reality. So the question isn't whether these habits work, because they do. The question is whether you have the strength to implement them, to stick with them when things get difficult, to become the kind of man who doesn't need motivation, because discipline has become his default mode of operation.